winter wind slips through the window frame, and in this quiet room a bit of old warmth still lingers without fading. My heart moves toward it, yet refuses to move away. When winter arrives, longing seems to flow more slowly on a path where footprints vanish as soon as they're made. The feeling that refuses to disappear remains firmly in its place. Even in the cold air, it is warmth that comes to mind first. In the pale streets, a scene from long ago emerges with unexpected clarity. I thought I had forgotten each time seasons change, but when winter comes that scene settles again like falling snow. A pattern of emotion that erases nothing. When the air turns cold enough to sting my fingertips, the temperature of my heart becomes strangely clear. Even in a single breath, old feelings echo faintly. Longing stays for winter because some emotions only become clear in the cold. A fragment of warmth that refuses to be buried in snow keeps holding on to me. Winter's not a season for forgetting. It is the season that brings memories back. Some say you must forget to live, but in this season I choose to let longing stay. The heart I haven't sent away piles up quietly like snow, and when it finally melts someday, I know I'll grow lighter with it. The wind settles, white breath drifts softly, and the longing within me rests for a moment. A feeling doesn't fade just because it has aged. Winter's silence lets me look into it again, and within that stillness I find a small light that remains. Longing stays not to be held on to, but to teach me how to let it go. Under winter's cold breath I prepare to release the heart I kept for so long. At winter's edge, I finally understand. It wasn't longing that stayed, but me. And because I stayed, I grew a little steadier. When the snow melts, this heart too will flow in another shape. Night is always quiet, but tonight's quiet feels different, as if the voice I could not release stays inside this room, hovering in the dark, waiting for me to breathe it out. Yet I remain silent. Outside, the streetlights burn at their own slow, steady pace, and beneath them I hold a lyric I never managed to call, letting only the sound of my breath fill the empty space. Tonight I understand too clearly that some things resonate without ever being spoken. The deeper the night sinks, the clearer the ripples inside me become. Should I call this song out, or simply stay here with the trembling that refuses to settle? The melody stays caught in my throat, going nowhere, belonging nowhere. If I open my mouth, I feel your name will be the first to escape. So I swallow my voice once more, unspoken sentences quietly gather in the corners of this room. This night song I couldn't call flows softly inside my chest. A voiceless melody brushes against the frozen part of my heart. These emotions that never became a song shake me far more clearly than sound ever could. Darkness asks me for an honest confession, but I'm not ready yet. If I call it, I might break. If I don't, it only hurts. So I linger for a long time in the narrow place between those two. Through the window's thin gap, I hear the night breathing. I let its slow rhythm watch over the song I never called. Maybe someday I will sing this fully, without hesitation. Not tonight, but on a certain night yet to come. Even an uncalled song might find its own small purpose in simply being here. A melody I cannot summon rises deep within me, more honest without sound, more truthful without form. I leave this quiet tremor in the care of the night. Night fades, and still I never called the song. Yet the faint resonance left inside me shivers like a real melody, one waiting for its moment. Someday can name this feeling without fear. I will finally sing it. For now, I lay tonight in silence, gently over what remains. Winter wind slips between the buildings, carrying off a voice that had barely begun to form. I failed to hold its end, my lips moving only faintly before I stop where I stand. I tried to speak your name, but the wind passed first, sweeping the space clean before my breath could reach it. My hesitant greeting scattered in the pale winter light, a word never meant to reach you, yet I wished it could drift somewhere, anywhere beyond me. The wind always moved ahead of me, it secretly carried the words I could not release, yet left them nowhere. The greeting you never heard lingered quietly inside me, rising at the thinnest layer of winter, like a tremor resurfacing. I think I understand now. Unspoken truth does not simply fade away. The wind may pass, but my heart remains slightly trembling in the same place. One greeting carried by the wind, yet never sent. That small word keeps this winter from being finished. Even if it never reaches you, I still stand here, holding it gently. A phrase like a hand I once reached toward you, yet a fragment of feeling that never arrived. Even that the wind brushes for me, pausing for a moment, like a faint possibility, then slipping away without a sound. Snow falls quietly while the wind turns toward another direction. I keep the unsent greeting resting on my palm, breathing once before I let the moment settle. Someday it may reach you, or it may remain forever unheard, but the words that once circled at the edge of my heart begin to take shape now within the winter wind. I try not to lose that fragile outline. The greeting left unsent was not a stalled attempt, but a quiet part of me that kept me standing. Even if it never reaches you, here in the middle of winter I feel the warmth of that small truth again. The final greeting I send on the wind glimmers briefly in the air. You may never know it existed, but because of that small word I lose a little less of myself today. At winter's edge I leave behind a single feeling, unreceived yet real. Snow that fell through the night has swallowed all the sound. dreams of dawn. Between the seams of a sleeping city, an old memory suddenly lifts its head. Each time I cross winter's threshold, there is a name called from deep within. The more I say I've forgotten, the clearer its shadow becomes. Moments that once brushed past me sting again like frozen fingertips. A voice someone left behind, the expression of that day. Even the back I failed to look toward or rise again beneath winter's pale light. A memory that refuses to fade must be holding a truth I never spoke. Memories return not when I reach for them, but when I suddenly stop, finding the smallest gap in my heart. They settle like silent snowflakes. A memory that refuses to fade walks today beside me. Even when unnamed, it breathes quietly inside me and leads me back to a winter long gone. The more I try to erase it, the deeper it sinks. I ask myself, does this memory bind me or give me strength to leave? No answer comes, yet in the cold air I sense something shifting. Each winter I pass turns the memory into another path. Streetlights flicker and my shadow overlaps with the old one from before, coming together then drifting apart. Winter night's breath quietly chooses one. Maybe it's not that I can erase it, but that it never needed erasing. Time that shaped me has no reason to disappear. Memories ache because the self within them is still alive. The memory that refuses to fade whispers to today's me. Even if it is past, do not be ashamed of the time that once held you. Hearing that faint voice, I slow my steps. If it truly won't fade, I will walk with it. When winter ends, a version of me inside it will change as well. Not being able to erase it is fine. A memory is an old hand gently urging me to live once more. Stop walking, even the winter wind didn't rush past. It lingered beside me. Only in stillness did the small breaths of my heart begin to rise quietly. After walking for a long while, I suddenly stopped, and only my traces remain, silent upon the snow, staring at that stillness I finally began to remember what I had lost and what I had hurried past. Winter always finds a way to bring a person back into themselves. Words I kept postponing, feelings I hadn't dared to reopen, they unfolded softly like old letters in a drawer. The emotions I let slip away seem to find their places again within the quiet of this winter. If I hadn't stopped, these thoughts might never have surfaced. The small truths lifting their heads one by one. I look at them now without fear. The thoughts rising where I stood still were more honest than any season. On the road I ran through too quickly, I finally answer myself. I never knew that pausing could speak this many truths. Others stride forward with purpose, but here in the Snowfall center I listen to my own heart calling out to me. Today I learned the place where you stop can teach more than the place you're trying to reach. Between breaths of winter air, my thoughts slowly take shape like snow flowers blooming somewhere inside me. The thoughts that surfaced were small truths I had forgotten. Winter keeps them from running away and sets them down quietly like snow. The feelings that bloom where I stood still begin to reshape who I am. Emotions I never named slowly reclaim themselves, and my steps turn toward a new direction. Before I walk again, I stay a moment longer, holding the rising thoughts so they won't fade. What changed in this place of stillness guides the person I become today. As I walk slowly across the snow-covered path, something deep beneath my steps sends up faint tremors of memory. Old feelings rising like breath in cold air. I walk listening to what I'm stepping on. Under the fresh layer of snow, the seasons I've lived through are sleeping quietly. With each step forward, hidden scenes surface in pale transparent shapes. It's as if forgotten memories respond to the pressure at my toes. A small, brittle crack of recognition. Arguments from last winter, words I once believed mattered, moments I brushed aside, melt slowly inside the snow, and return as heavy thoughts. Every step knocks softly on a closed room within me. The emotions that weighed me down begin to change form in this winter air. I pause to look at the long shadow of time I've passed through. Old reflections buried beneath my steps call out to the person I am today. Feelings I thought would disappear if hidden rise again. The moment my foot touches the earth, I do not turn away. I take one more step and then another. The brittle sound of snow breaking underfoot seems to speak of fractures in my past. Even on roads that looked unremarkable, the traces I left behind remain. Following those traces, I grow a little more honest. Between my footprints, winter's breath moves slowly along its flow. The old narratives within me begin to wake. My steps move forward, but my mind keeps glancing back. Times I believed I'd let go, regain shape within the snow. I meet the version of myself I left behind, and accepting piece by piece. As I keep walking, what was buried changes meaning. A burdened memory softens into a quiet exhale, and in that faint warmth I find a lighter part of myself. I no longer avoid the old reflections beneath my steps. I walk over them, revive them, accept them, and become who I am now. Walking a snowy road is learning that every step crosses a past version of me. Night air settles gently on my shoulders. Each breath I release drifts into the dark as a faint white trace fading slowly. The winter night speaks no words, yet it feels unmistakably like it is listening. Walking through an empty alley unhurried, I retrace the fragments of my day. Words I couldn't say, answers I softened midway, and that small tremor I felt as I turned away. This night questions nothing, it simply receives. I stop beneath the streetlight and look at myself for a moment. The daytime version of me was too cluttered. The evening version slightly blurred, only within the stillness of a winter night does a certain part of my heart begin to return into focus. As the quiet seems to whisper my name once, I draw a slow breath and begin to bring forth the stories I had long kept tucked away. A monologue offered to a winter night is heard by no one, yet it is truer than anything in this single stream of cold air. I can finally hold the parts of me that tremble, and with every word spoken inward, I become a little less alone. As I walk, pause and walk again, a firm thought arises from somewhere near my feet, that I must not abandon myself, not even tonight. This quiet is both a time for emptying and a time for filling. My breath turns into a small mist between the frozen layers of air. Inside that pale cloud, the words I locked away begin to move again. There are voices I would never have heard without a night like this. Truths too small to carry in daylight, a courage I postponed, the expression I nearly lost track of. Slowly, carefully, I answer this night. The longer this monologue continues, the closer I come to myself. Blurred emotions sharpen beneath the pale glow of the streetlight. This is how a winter night keeps me from losing my way. Even without saying a single word aloud, I realized I was arriving at myself all along. When I listen closely, the winter night always replies, quietly telling me to A dawn without words, snow drifting as if it knows where to go. With both hands in my pockets, I decide not to ask anything for a while. Like someone who senses winter's end too early, I had already thought of far too many things. Fragments of a heart I left behind, shadows of words that never settled. All of them slowly disappeared beneath the steps I kept moving. When my breath breaks faintly in the air, I finally understand there are feelings in this world that words can never hold. So today, instead of speaking, I walk through the falling snow. Silence empties me and somehow fills me at the same time. Crossing winter was quieter than I expected, and the quiet was warmer than I imagined. I learned little by little how to cross winter in silence, how to stand steady even as sounds fade away, how to feel the weight of myself even under deepening snow without saying anything. My day continues on. When I stop walking, the wind cuts ahead of me first. I simply follow after it, no longer trying to understand winter fully, carrying a little heaviness, a little lightness. I walk as the person I am today. The wind passes and quiet finds its way back. My slightly frozen breath glimmers beneath the streetlight. Sometimes silence is the only thing that lets you survive. The deepest quiet is an escape, it's staying, and staying in time becomes the strength that lifts me again. Winter says nothing, yet in its silence I hear my own name clearly, knowing without words, a strength that lets me cross what once felt impossible. Crossing winter without speaking, I have not lost myself today. Beyond my faint breath, a small, unwavering resolve rises. This winter has quietly taught me how to live, even in silence. Yet between those soft erasing lines, a small warmth of the heart still flickers quietly. Even on the road I walked, dawn snow had settled in silence. Beneath the untouched white surface, last night's traces were not yet entirely cool. The heart was the same. Covered does not mean completed. In the frozen air I sense the breath of an old emotion. Maybe it's something that should have faded, yet it remained deep inside, where I couldn't push it away. Snow only covers it, it never truly erases. Like the cold air brushing my hand, a faint tremor reaches me. That tremor awakens a part of my heart I thought I had already settled. Even when snow buries it, a heart that remains does not vanish. Under a blanket of white, its warmth still breathes softly. A long stored feeling meets me again in the deep quiet of winter. Time seems to freeze everything in place, yet somewhere inside me a slow thought continues. Unspoken stories do not lose their shape in the snow. They simply wait, unmoving but alive. The wind withdraws, leaving only white silence within it. The weight of an unforgotten heart rises again gently. I decide not to force this heart away. When winter ends, its original color may return. Some things become clearer the more we try to hide them. To be covered is not the same as to be gone. Beneath the white surface, the heart I have held for so long slowly regains its shape. The quiet of winter seems to protect it instead. Yet I already know no depth of snow can erase certain feelings. They return in the stillest moments, calling me back to myself. on untouched snow. My footsteps appear one by one, keeping a small distance from the world. I walk inward again today. Walking alone is less lonely than expected, and far more honest. Only the streetlights see the expressions I hide from everyone else under their faint glow. I gather the small fragments of my heart. Sometimes I pause and look back at the path behind me. Words I missed, choices I avoided, and even the love I never managed to speak. They all stretched out faintly like footprints half buried in snow. Winter wind is painfully honest. It reveals the things I've tried so hard to hide. Still I decide to listen. Maybe now I wanna call my own name a little differently. On this road I walk alone. I finally meet myself, free from someone's expectations, free from yesterday's regret. A heart beginning anew, like fresh prints on white snow. That was the first lesson I learned today. Sometimes a road without answers is the one I need. Only in that silence do true questions surface. What kind of life do I want? Where did I leave pieces of myself behind? Like snow clinging to my shoes, the truth slowly begins to show. Through white breads, one step, then another. I'm not sure anymore whether the road is leading me or I'm carving the road myself. Today I learned there is no need to turn back and no need to rush ahead. Walking alone was simply a quiet reconciliation with the oldest version of me. I walk alone, yet I am no longer lonely. An old shadow within me slowly turns into words, and those words become my steps, guiding me toward a new direction. Today's footprints will soon disappear into the snow, but what I learned will not vanish. Only by walking alone did I learn how to reach myself. And so a quiet season opens within me.
At dawn, when even the wind seems to rest, snowflakes fall like whispered fragments on a street untouched by footsteps. A faint ripple of sound begins to spread. There are sounds that appear only when the snow starts drifting. The distant roll of a car's tires, or perhaps a memory I dropped yesterday. They blur together into a quiet tremor. Each small echo feels as if something other than me is walking through my heart. A soft clink of someone setting down a cup in a nearby house. The first trembling of the morning train far away, and the tiny cry of snow crushed beneath my step. Every sound of winter arrives a beat late and settles gently inside my chest. In a dawn where snow absorbs even sound, the slightest vibration feels amplified. Within that stillness, I begin gathering the long scattered pieces of myself. The sound passing through snowfall felt like the only conversation this dawn allowed. Within winter's fragile breath, breaking and vanishing as it falls, I ask myself quietly how I should walk today, what I must leave behind, and what I must finally hold. Names I once called out, and the echoes of words I never found the courage to speak. They drift through the snow and fade into the pale distance, but they are not disappearing, they are returning differently, as something I can finally face. Snow continues, trembling lightly, and every sound in the world draws a slow breath behind a white veil. I understand now, a sound is not what the ear hears, but what the heart allows in. Even the voice of someone lost, even the truth I once avoided, they brush past me again in this cold winter air. The small sounds slicing through snowfall no longer make me feel alone. Within them I rediscover the self I thought I had forgotten. Winter is such a season where what scatters quietly returns. A single sound passing through the snow awakens the first feeling of my day. I follow that tremor and take a slow step forward alongside the things that vanish. I begin again.
Dawn, when even my breath turns white and still, I realize winter found me before the snow did. Upon that silent breath, a single flake falls without making any sound. Each time I inhale, a cold trace rises from somewhere deep inside, as if buried words are waking again. The winter, the snow landing on my breath, felt like a small hand urging me to pause for a moment. On the frozen trail of my exhaled breath, snowflakes begin to gather lightly. Every mark made by the warmth of my lungs turns into a faint white dot, a quiet record of my presence. Even as they disappear, their fragile warmth reminds me of emotions once hidden. Tonight, even a breath cannot make itself warm, yet the snow settling on it arrives like a muted comfort at the trembling end of my exhale. A name I once held carefully unexpectedly rises to the surface. Snow resting on frozen breath, its quiet weight wraps around me without a single word. If there is a feeling that refuses to fade, perhaps it appears like this, slowly revealing itself at winter's very beginning. I never realized how often my breath has paused in my life. The hours spent as though something was missing rise now as thin white mist and slowly melt away. Through that brief warmth, a forgotten voice softly reaches out to me. Snow still trembles in the cold air, and I exhale once more. A breath slightly warmer than before creates a new space for something to begin. Even on nights when my breath freezes midair, I quietly confirm that I am still alive. The smallest, faintest inhalation lights a gentle spark somewhere deep within me. The snow that once settled on frozen breath now melts little by little, forming a thin path of water. Following that path, I take a step toward the version of myself I left long ago. One last breath rises wide into the air. Another flake lands upon it, soft, almost weightless. I feel that slight pressure and begin the day. Slowly but unmistakably moving forward.
The streetlight settles over the frozen air. Each time the light brushes past, winter shatters into small fragments beneath it. I test the weight of my own heart. Under the yellow glow, snowflakes linger briefly, and disappear like a fragile broken breath. Words that collapsed inside me last night seem to drift among these white fragments. The distant sound of footsteps deepens the cold of this street. In the glass across the road, my reflection looks slightly tilted, and the headlights sweeping by carve winter's edges into sharper lines. As I step forward once, I brush against an old shadow within me. Standing in the light, the feelings I tried to hide come into focus, and emotions that pretended to be weightless whisper for me to finally acknowledge them. Under the streetlights, winter breaks apart, and in those scattered pieces I see myself again. Even when the fragments graze my long hidden wounds, this trembling seems to lead me somewhere I have not yet been. A single snowflake lands on my hand and melts before I can say anything. Watching its brief existence, I remember the parts of me I've misplaced. Perhaps it isn't the winter breaking, but me. The streetlight flickers, and only the drifting fragments circle quietly in the air. On a street where no one is watching, I walk between the shards of what's fallen. Without saying a word, winter slowly reveals the cracks inside me. When the fragments of winter brush past my darkness, I feel myself grow lighter. Edges of long nights soften in the scattered light, and the heart that takes a step forward changes, even if just slightly. Under the streetlights, as the broken breath of winter fades, I realize quietly that I have come farther than I thought. At the end of the breaking, a small stillness remains, and within it, a faint light. The bus doesn't arrive, and only snow settles quietly on the shelter's roof. Sitting on the unmoving bench, I wait for winter before I wait for myself. The clock at the stop seems to move slowly, and on the fogged glass, last night's sighs linger, sinking in softly. The cold metal beneath my fingertips returns me to this very place. In this dawn where no one is here to answer, only the bus route map politely shows the roads I have never taken. I pause. Am I standing still because I have somewhere to go? Or searching for a place to go because I'm standing still? For a moment I'm unsure.
snowflake taps the window, I hear a faint sound. That small vibration slowly knocks on the hardened layers of my heart. The quiet at this snow-covered stop asked me for the first thought of my day. Unable to hurry, unable to turn back, I accept the stillness just as it is. Even if waiting isn't meant for anyone, this moment warms me a little. A distant wheel sound passes by without stopping here, and the bus I'm meant to board still doesn't appear. Yet strangely, the shadow of anxiety grows slightly lighter, and I learn how to endure this pause. Even the wind has stopped, and the snow continues to fall silently. This quiet whiteness covers the old layers of waiting inside me. To someone else this stop means nothing, but maybe today I needed to rest here for a while. All the speeds I lost along the way, the snow gathers them one by one in my place. When the silence wraps around me again, I steady my breath a little slower, so the waiting no longer hurts. And even in a world that has stopped, the path within me keeps unfolding. Even if the bus never comes, I have no intention of standing up. The quiet of this snow-covered stop offers me a gentle reconsidering of myself. It tells me softly to pause for a moment, to look at myself again and live again.
The buildings in this alley hold the scent of lives no one remembers. The chipped paint beneath the window frames seems to tell which seasons they've endured. When the wind brushes along the wall, scenes I buried long ago rise one by one. A faint light leaks from a cracked doorway, and even the subtle sounds inside a stranger's home deepen the winter of this street. Following a distant thread of music, I move forward slowly, my heart swayed as if tugged by the wind. Through the air left behind by someone's past, I walk quietly. The wind carries the scent of memory, and at the end of it, I find myself. The wind seeping through old buildings awakens the shadows I've passed through. It stirs the scattered pieces of memory and places me back on this road. Moments I believe were forgotten come alive again in the winter air. Behind a sleeping window, I almost hear an old laughter drifting out, and my heartbeat echoes faintly with a rhythm. I slow my steps, following that gentle reverberation. I've walked this alley countless times, yet it has never felt this deep before. Perhaps the cracks within my heart have widened just enough for the wind to pass through. Within the seeping wind, I meet the seasons I left behind. When forgotten moments return on its breath, I take their waiting slowly. In this winter I am no longer who I was yesterday. Its last trace and slips away between the old buildings. In its lingering quiet, I stand with a slightly changed breath. The wind that passed through me now flows gently within.
The street lamp flickers faintly, stretching my shadow long, then pulling it back. On this road where no footsteps sound, I walk past myself first before anything else. The half-asleep city exhales a low breath in the morning sun, drifts lazily through the alley. With no wind, the grain of my heart lies exposed. Will today shake me less than yesterday? No one asks, yet I answer quietly. When I stop for a moment, thoughts colder than winter's air wrap softly around my ankles, and I gently peel them away. In this alley where the wind has stole, I stand as if meeting winter for the first time. The dawn asking nothing of me lifts the weight in my chest with quiet hands. Maybe just by walking forward, today might change, even if slightly. Left in the morning paper fades, and behind a window a curtain shifts ever so slightly. A day that hasn't begun for me might already be heavy for someone else. I hold that thought lightly in my palm and walk again.
stopping again and again. Perhaps this windless dawn is holding me for a brief moment. As I pass through the alley, I whisper to myself not to let this winter shake me, not to tremble before it does. In the haunted wind, I steady my breath and set down a quieter heart. Before the wind rises again, I push myself forward, step by step. My first trace of winter remains here. The corner of the alley, leaving behind a sharp breath of cold. At the edge where it fades, I stop, quietly looking at the old shadow I've carried within me. If this wind hadn't blown tonight, there are parts of myself I might never have faced. Feelings I pushed aside, covered up, pretended not to know. Out here at the edge of wind, they come into focus again. Under the streetlight, my long shadow seems to tremble before I do. Why did I ignore even these small shivers in me? In the stillness of winter, I realize I can't lie to myself. The wind is cold, yet its coldness makes me sharper. The parts that wanted to disappear, the parts that wanted to endure, all of them surface quietly within a single gust. The self I face at the edge of wind is not the one I tried to flee from, but the one that survived to the end. Every place I once trembled, every scattered piece gathers back, recovering its true breath. The me who was hurt by someone's words, the me worn down by indifferent days, the me who tried so hard to forget. The wind brings them all to me again. I look at them closely, and and begin to accept each one. The wind settles for a moment, and a faint warmth slips into my chest. A place where I don't have to run. That is where I find myself standing. Truth is not always gentle, but once I finally face it, a small light remains at its end. What the wind could not erase, that was the part that stayed mine. The heart that used to tremble shakes a little less tonight. And the shadow I once feared comes a little closer. At the edge of wind, I learn how to become myself again. The wind passes on, and I remain where I stand. A self that doesn't run, a self that doesn't collapse. The one I met at the edge of wind was stronger than I imagined. Slowly, the strength to cross this winter settles into me.
When winter deepens, parts of my heart freeze as well. Feelings that resist naming solidify quietly, layer by layer, until I can almost hear the stillness settle inside me. In the cold wind, old wounds ache again. Things I believed forgotten return the moment winter's fingertips brush against them. The path where the heart freezes is always quiet. I notice it only after it's done. A single word from someone, a gaze that cool without warning, a moment I barely remember. Any of these might have frozen me. Back then, I wasn't strong, I simply couldn't move. Only now do I understand that. Then a faint warmth begins to spread from somewhere. Perhaps it's someone's laughter, or the hush at the end of the day. A small heat that finds the tiniest crack first in the frozen heart. The moments when the heart freezes and thaws, they are truer than any words. Shadows that had hardened inside me slowly lose their shape, not disappearing, but quietly making peace with me. And as I accept that change, I return to myself a little more fully. Emotions that thaw are always blurred, always imperfect. But if that imperfection means I'm still alive, then it's alright to hesitate. So I hold on to today's warmth to keep my heart from freezing again. The wind is still cold, yet something inside me has already begun to cross this winter temperature shift slowly,
but unmistakably within me. Among the feelings melting down, questions I abandoned long ago resurface. Why couldn't I endure? Why did I cling so tightly? Why did it hurt so much? But whenever I try to answer, my heart begins to freeze again. So today, I simply let the questions drift away. The moments when the heart freezes and thaws, winter's light deepens because of them. Even in the cold, a small trembling forms and illuminates my inner path. On that path, I breathe again, slowly and quietly. The frozen heart, the thawing heart, both are me. And today, knowing that hurts a little less, passing through winter is how I mend, how I return to life. Slowly, so slowly, but unmistakably. Where the wind had passed, the traces were gone, yet a faint warmth lingered, as if someone had stayed here for just a moment and left quietly, leaving behind only a soft, inexplicable afterglow. I always thought winter wind was nothing but cold, but today, strangely, every place it brushed left a hint of warmth. The shoulders I had kept tense without realizing slowly relaxed, and even my breath felt steadier. If this is comfort, it must be the quietest form of it. Just as we realize someone's warmth only after they leave, the wind was no different, it vanished. And only then did I feel its presence. Only in the empty space did I understand the cold I had been enduring. It's a strange rule, the things that do not remain often stay with us the longest. I gather that warmth carefully in my palms. I know it will disappear soon, yet even a single moment of holding its weight feels precious. The warmth left where the wind had been. I never asked for it, yet it finds its way to me and helps me endure the day. I don't question it, it needs no explanation. This small warmth alone is enough for now. No one's heart stays frozen all winter. Somewhere an unexpected breeze will arrive and leave a warmth you didn't anticipate. And just like that, my heart too will cross this winter someday. Such small beliefs are what keep me standing today. The wind has stopped, snow settles quietly again. Yet within that silence, I still feel the warmth, uncertain but undeniably present. Among the feelings melting inside me are questions I abandoned long ago. Why couldn't I endure? Why did I cling so tightly? Why did it hurt so deeply? But each time I try to answer, my heart begins to harden again. So today, I let those questions drift away. The warmth left where the wind had been. Its subtle temperature loosens the winter inside me. Barely noticeably, but unmistakably. In that loosened space, I remember again that I am still alive. The wind will blow again and I will face the cold once more. But with this small warmth left behind from today, I feel I can walk differently through the rest of this winter. The wind has gone, yet the warmth remains, glowing softly deep within. The quietest part of my heart. There was a wind that passed by me one winter. It left no words, yet in its silence something I had long lost seemed to stir again. I still cannot forget that wind. One day a single thread of wind brushed my ear, carrying a feeling I couldn't quite name. On an empty street, that wind slid gently past me. And in that moment, the weight inside my chest, the one even I didn't fully know, lifted just slightly. Memory works like that. It remains in the moment of its disappearance. The wind asked nothing of me. It didn't demand words, nor clarity, nor understanding. It simply moved on, as if telling me that not everything must be explained. Every winter I find myself recalling that wind. I still don't know why it stays so vividly. Perhaps it's seeped somewhere deep within my life without me noticing. When the echo of wind passes through drifting snow, I pause for a moment. The grain of emotion that wind once left in me trembles again in my chest. The story of the wind I can't forget. In it were the times I lost, the words I never spoke, the seasons that slipped past me. That wind did not pierce the darkness of my life, but it left behind a faint, unmistakable light that helped me continue walking. I know now It wasn't the wind that was special, it was the version of me standing in it that day. I carried wounds in quiet and a moment where the world seemed to stop just slightly, and only that wind chose to pass through me. That may be why it refuses to fade. The wind moves on, snow settles again, and winter deepens. But the story that wind left still flows within me, softly, quietly, unchanged. Wind has no shape, yet some winds do not merely pass, they linger in the empty rooms of the heart, and after leaving, they change the temperature of those rooms. I didn't believe that for a long time, but now I do. The story of the wind I can't forget. Its quiet trace was gentler than any comfort, truer than any word it left me. The strength to go on with no conditions attached. That is why I remember that wind even today. Even when winter ends, even when all the snow melts, the story of that wind does not disappear. The wind will blow again, but that one wind was only once in my life. I never managed to thank it properly. So may this song be my belated farewell, and may that wind, just as it did back then, remain quietly yet deeply within me.